So hello everyone, this is a live for our 1K successful YouTube subscribers, and today we will complete this drawing. So I'm using this reference. I'm using this reference for my live video. So you can even follow along if you want to. There will be some basic insights on how you can achieve the realistic approach in your drawing. So I'm going to start with this. So I had already completed this half of the drawing before, and you will even get the real-time video of this as well. So I'll create a separate playlist for this. So our this will be our live video, and the other reference is going to be about our pre-recorded video, which is the first part of this live that I will include in the playlist. So now I'm completing the upper eyelid of this drawing. I have already recorded the other portions. For example, this recording of this eyeball and the all over structure. I've already recorded that, and this in this live we are going to complete it. So you will get everything in that live and update it in the playlist as well. I'm using this brush, which is a random brush, a makeup brush, and it has a hard bristle at this edge, and it is slightly smaller in size as compared to one which are extremely bigger for the larger surface. So since I'm working on a smaller surface, I'm using this brush, which is uh, it is easily handled, and without any issue I can create very dark tones, and I can create mid tones, and I can separate the variation for the highlights. So right now I'm completing the upper eyelid. I have a charcoal powder already made, so I use that charcoal powder. I use charcoal powder by Camlin, and I make that by myself. Also, I use this charcoal pencil, which is the Brewster's soft charcoal pencil and Brewster's hard charcoal pencil, along with the Camlin soft charcoal pencil and their neutral and hard series. Also, I'm going to fix this portion. You see the eyeball is slightly tilted, so I'll fix that with this Brewster's soft charcoal pencil. I have got this pencil recently, and I have not used it much for my charcoals. Usually I use this Camlin's charcoal pencil. This is a really good charcoal pencil and extremely, favorable for any kind of drawing. You can achieve hyperrealism, realism, and a cartoonish effect with it. So recommended for the beginners as well. So I'm using this bigger brush, and now I am shading this region, which is the upper eyelid region, and I'm blending that with the help of a synthetic brush. This is a normal paint brush. I'm constantly observing my reference as well. So there was a reason behind this reference I chose, since we crossed 1K yesterday. So this was kind of an astonished eye and a surprised eye, visually, surprised, like how, at what place we are at right now. So I'm shading this region with the help of a bigger synthetic brush, and also I'll take a brush which is softer than the other one. This is a very soft brush. I'll use this to create the darker values. For example, this region should be a little bit darker, so I'm using it like this. So see, it creates a very dark value. This is creating a really, really dark value that I am looking forward to, since this is the region of the shadows. As I'm observing my reference, I can see there is a darker value here. So I'm using the exact same brush for the region. The selection of brush can vary from place to place, areas to areas, and values to values. If you want to create a very subtle value, you can use this brush and take little amount of charcoal in it and shade the region. For example, when you want to shade the highlights or when you can shade the background specifically, the bigger background, so you can use that brush. Handling the charcoal on the soft sheet can be a little bit difficult. So you need to be very careful when you are using a brush like this because it is spreading the charcoal. For the smaller areas, this is the brush I'm using. This exact brush. So now with the help of this bigger brush, I'm shading this region. Since the value is not very dark, I'm not using charcoal powder in this. I'm using the charcoal powder which was already in the brush. So I'm using that. What I'm looking for is a very gentle switch or transition. For that, I'm using this softer brush to create the transition. You can use either a bigger brush or you can use the hard brush for this or filbert brush for this. But since I want the transition, I'm using a very soft brush because that is what I can handle very easily. I'm shading this region which is just below the crease line. So you see how this has created a three-dimensional effect. So I'm using more of the charcoal powder so that I can achieve this level. And some of the charcoal powder is above the crease line, which will give more 3Dness and more dimension to this when I'll shade this region. But for now, this region is dark enough to be 3D. So understanding the forms is very important when we are drawing in realism, or let's say we're drawing in hyperrealism. The tonal values are the most basic thing that we need to take care of. If our tones are correct, the output of the hyperrealism will also be much achievable. And if you want to study hyperrealism or if you want some more real-time tutorials, that is listed in my channel already. I'm leaving this region because this is the region of eyelashes. So here eyelashes will come. So I will touch this region after I draw the eyelashes. But till then I'm shading the lower lid now, or this bump which we usually see. Before that I'll take some charcoal in this hard brush. You can use filbert brush also, and I'll draw the outline of this. So I know where exactly to stop and where exactly to start making the lines. So that's why I'm using this, and this region is going to be little bit darker than the other region. So this region will be darker than the region which is this. So this is the crease and this crease, like this. And now I'll take this brush and I'll draw with this. This region, since I already have marked that it is darker, so I will use a softer brush for this and create a dark value. Also, I'm cleaning some of the unnecessary dust that I have gathered so it doesn't bother me after I have drawn this. So I'm erasing all the unnecessary parts. And by the way, this is a kneaded eraser. This is also by Camel. And this brush I'm using, this bigger one, is also from Camel. So I'm shading this region. You need to handle charcoal very well at this point. You don't want inconsistency, like this. And now since I know the area, now I can put a little bit mark here till this is the gradient mark. I want darker region at this portion and I want lighter region at this portion. So this is a gradient mark. I'll take a little bit more charcoal in this and I'll shade this region. Just like this. And now I'm going to take more charcoal and build layer on it. So now this is looking very flat, but as we make layer on it, it will give realistic effect to this drawing. See, this is the level of darkness I'm looking forward to. So I'll create a consistent layer like this. And will not keep it very flat. You see, I have separated that with a little bit whitish region. This region is for the lower lash because somewhere lashes are going to be there. Right now, you'll not see lashes because that is the last thing I do. I put lashes at the very last so they don't smudge. And the part 1 of this video will be in our playlist section. I'll update the whole series of this within few weeks. You can let me know in the comment section if you have any sort of doubt about materials or the shades or the tones or anything you want to know about. For those who are watching it live, can comment down right now, or for those who are watching this after the live, can comment down in the comment section. So I'll surely answer that or make a separate video about that. So again, I'll take the kneaded eraser and erase the unnecessary region which is coming out of my grid or my working area. I'm taking a little charcoal on this brush and I am working my way to this. Again, I'm repeating the most crucial part about the realistic drawings are your tones, your mid-tones, your highlights and your shadows. If your shadows are correct, if your highlights are correct, if your mid-tones are on point, then you have successfully achieved your realism portion or your hyperrealism portion. I'm shading this region. And I'm shading this region as well. So this region is looking good to me. It is dark enough, it has enough highlights, it has enough shadows, and not the highlights. Highlights are for the upcoming steps. But since I have layered it down, I'm very happy with the layer. And I'll shade this region now. I'll take little bit charcoal on my bigger brush and I'll shade this region as well. So this region is not going to be as dark as this region. And I have also left some space to show the gradients in the drawing. The lower portion is going to be little bit darker, just a little bit. And the overall, you need to, when you are making the tones, you need to take care that this region is always going to be darker than this region. Also, that depends on your reference or your lightning. So it's not always true, but in most cases, it is true. Now see, this region is way lighter than this region. So I'm again taking my brush And now I'm going to create the gradient. I'm slowly working into my drawing so I don't create a mess or mishandle the charcoal, because mishandling the charcoal is the worst thing you can ever do. And slowly I'm going to shift it toward the lighter shade. I'm going into the circular motion, and now this gradient is perfect. Just the one thing is a little bit darker, low, low profile. This profile needs to be a little bit darker. This is perfect. And I'll take any sort of extra graphite, which is our grids, and I'll take extra charcoal with this kneaded eraser. It is a must have. Now I'm going to take the hard charcoal pencil. I'm using this Bruce Throws hard charcoal, and I'll take this charcoal and create this lower lash. Lower lash line, not specifically the lash, but the lash line. So now I can differentiate that, and I've already created the upper lash line. This lash line is untidy right now because this is not the fair lash line, and I have to work on that region. So I have not created much details here. Now I'm laying down a contour light here. This is a contour light I'm working with. This live is going to be a little bit longer since I'm going to complete this whole artwork and give some insights side by side about drawing and shading. Always work in layers. Do not rush into things. So you need to always work in layers. So you're working in layer by layer and filling up the gaps. So this is good enough for now. Or I'll just create a little bit highlight here, like the movement here. So this, I have created a little bit movement. And this region looks a little bit grainy. So I'm shading that region to remove the excess graininess, because that is something that is making our drawing looking uh, a little bit whitish and drawn kind of, because we are looking for a realistic approach. So I'm removing the graininess. This is looking good. And now I have not tried this brush yet when drawing this reference, but I think I should give a try of shading a bigger region. So it works, but it is not very accurate. Yes, it works, but it is not very accurate. But it works since this region was a plain region, so I don't have to worry about anything wrong happening. And this is the only thing that you need to take care whenever you're drawing something or whenever you're experimenting something. Do not experiment on the fair region if you're approaching for the realism part. Do experiment on the region where you're confident enough that this, even if it goes wrong, you can fix it later. So that is the thing you need to take care. And I'm shading this contour light again to remove excess graininess. This region needs to be a little bit darker than the others. And I think this works well. The bigger one, the bigger brush I just showed you, this works well. So I'm going to shade the lower region as well. See, it is blending in. So this is not creating a partial value. This is blending everything in. So I'm using this only. And maybe I'll use this here also. But I'll not use it more because it has, it is lacking the ability to create different tones. So I will not use this more. And giving some values. Now this region has to be a little bit whitish than the other one. So again, I'm a little bit shifting the focus. And now I'm creating a highlight region. I'm using this as a highlight. I'm also taking off excess graininess from the sheet. And I'm constantly observing my reference. And I think this is working just fine. And this region is white. So I'm shifting the focus. I'm taking a bigger brush and I'm shading in this region. This is the region which should be darker. I'm working in the reference. Since this region is darker, so that's why I'm using layers on it. I'm not taking any excess charcoal right now. I'm just focusing on building the layers. So this looks good. And I'm also taking some gradient. I think this is enough. And now I think I should move to the other regions. Now what I notice is this region is darker again. This goes darker. So I'm again performing the same step, which is creating the highlights, leaving the highlights and shading out the shadows. Like this. And this is looking fine. Now I'll shade this region. This region is comparatively darker. So this is the shading of the upper eyelid. Okay. Now I'm taking this Bruce Throws hard charcoal pencil and I'm shading this region, this hair region, since this is not perfectly black, the inner region, and the outer region is completely dark. So I'm working my way into that. Since the region is out of focus, I'll take a harder brush for this and create this. Now for the hair region, I'll use a very hard charcoal pencil and I'll create the hair follicles, like the little hairs on the eyebrows, which are usually seen above the eye and cannot be seen by naked eye. Like you can see it, but you have to observe very carefully. So when you're drawing little details, that is what is going to make your drawing look realistic. And also observe why I have used the hard charcoal pencil in this. Since not all hair are of same intensity or same darkness or same thickness, so use the soft charcoal pencil where the hair are thicker, where you have to show the thickness and the darkness. So the darker the hair is, the more thicker it is. The lighter the hair is, the more uh, thin the hair is. So it's just the basic theory of hair. Now I'm shading this with the help of a brush, a bigger brush, and combining this region. I see a highlight here, so I'm not touching this region right now. So for now, this is definitely looking good. I'm shifting the focus. Now I'm taking a thinner brush and creating a gradient. I'm working in the circular motion. And with a bigger brush, I'm working myself with the larger area. I'm leaving this region right now because this is the region of highlight. So I'm not shading this region, and I see some region here which is not dark enough. I'm taking this hard charcoal pencil by Bruce Road, and I'm shading and drawing this hair region. So you cannot fully observe these here as I'm looking at my reference. So I'm drawing it like that only because this is the focus area of the eye, not the eyebrows. So eyebrows are following outside the drawing and the end is coming inside the drawing. So the start and the end of the drawing of the eyebrow is in the drawing. So that is why I'm creating only the little strokes that look like an eyebrow. So I'm creating some upward strokes, some downward strokes depending upon the intensity, like this, some cross strokes and some hair following this region as well. And I've already shaded this region, that is good enough. And now I'll take some charcoal in this brush and I'll shade this region as well. So I'm working in the layers so that I can differentiate between the gradients. You see, I'm creating a gradient value between these two shades. So that's why I'm using little bit brush, like little bit charcoal, depending upon the grade or the shade or the value that I want to achieve. And depending upon that value, I'll create the wave. So this drawing is about 60% done now. So this area was little bit darker. So I created a deep value as compared to this value. Now I'm shading this again. Okay, and now I'll follow this or extend this little bit upwards, little bit forward, just like this. So now you can see I have enough values to uh, draw, and I'm using the same brush here. Now I have differentiated my both values, which is darker values, the highlight points, uh, the midtones points and the shadows point are already highlighted. So good enough for that. Again taking a smaller brush and making this gradient. Now coming on to the points which were left for the highlights, I'm using a dry brush here. I've not taken any sort of extra charcoal on this to shade. I'm just shading the region so I get rid of these grid lines. Right now this drawing might look a little bit flat because we have not drawn the highlights yet. We have just drawn highlights in our eyeball and that is only thing which is looking good, and rest are just the basic tonal value. So that's why I said it is only 60% done. So I'm shading this region. See how I have differentiated the shades. I can clearly see the highlight region and my darker region. And this is in the stage of highlights, but after that it will turn into midtones because highlights are yet to be made. But for now, I'm naming it as the highlights only, or I'm referring this to as highlights. But actually these are the midtones. Highlights will come on the midtones. So I'm connecting these regions. Now I'm taking this uh, Kohinoor pen, or this is an pencil eraser by Kohinoor, and I'm creating the effect of the lash, like the lash effect here. If you're wondering what is a lash effect, the shadows of the lashes created on your this region. Now I'm shading this again. I'm taking the softer brush, sorry, the soft charcoal pencil, and I'm drawing the darker hairs. Since all hairs cannot be light, some hair needs to be dark. So that's why I'm using thicker brush. Now I'm taking the hard pencil and I'm now shading the region which is lighter or the thinner hairs. Like this, I'm doing this little bit here, and this looks good. This looks good now. Just the fact I'm using brush here. Now coming on to the highlights. This is the Bruce Throws battery eraser that I'm going to use, and I'm creating highlights here only at the necessary region. Also, I'll fade these highlights later on. Now there are a lot of highlights now, like these. For that, I'm gonna use this Tombow Mono Zero. This Tombow Mono Zero. I'll create the spores here. This is a hard surface paper, or sorry, the medium surface paper. So the pores are not very visible on this kind of sheet. But I'll uh, ask you to draw on a softer sheet, which is smoother. But for now, I'm generally doing this like this. And carefully observing my reference. So see how I'm creating these values. I'll also use the battery eraser on top of this later. But first I'm laying down where I need to put these highlighting marks. Also their direction, also their shape, or they come in different shape, they come in different sizes. So that is what we need to take care of. I'm filling this region right now because this region is comparatively very highlighted than the other regions. This region is very highlighted, this region is little bit highlighted, but as compared to this region is very highly highlighted. Now since I did this, now I have to create a shadow region at this portion. I'm using a hard charcoal pencil for that. I'll have to say this Bruce Throws hard charcoal pencil is very good as compared to the Campbell's one. The Camlin one doesn't work well, so that was the main reason I switched to Bruce Throws charcoal pencil. The soft grade charcoal pencil of Camlin is very good, but I think they should improve their hard grade charcoal pencil, which is comparatively it is very hard. It sometimes tears the paper while shading or while blending, and it doesn't blend properly. So there is no fun of using that pencil. So that's why I switched to the Bruce Rose charcoal pencil. And those are really good charcoal pencil, but for the beginners, I still prefer or I'll still recommend the Camlin's charcoal pencil. All my drawings are created with the Camlin's charcoal pencil. I've used this pencil recently. I think I've created only two artworks with this. This is the second one, and I've used a charcoal pencil in my cat portrait. And before that, I have also made a little eye for Danik Saxena, and for him, I also used the Bruce Rose charcoal pencil along with the Camlin one. So see, I've created this highlighted region. Now I'm taking this Bruce Rose battery eraser and I'm drawing the tips of them like this. I'm taking Kohinoor's pencil eraser and I'm little bit extending these regions. So there are a whole lot of materials that you can look forward to when you're drawing in realism. But the most important thing are your erasers, your paper. Pencils may vary. You can draw from the cheapest pencil to the most expensive pencils, and it works fine. Now I'm taking this hard charcoal pencil again and I'm doing little bit coverage with this. Since the area we are working in is very dark, so that's why I've created this highlight region like this. Now again taking the Bruce Throws eraser, creating the highlights. Which are your wrinkles mostly. I'm toning down the highlights with this brush. At the edge of this, I'm using the Tombow Mono Zero. Now I'll create highlights with this Bruce Rose battery eraser as well. So I see some highlights which is very very bright. So I use Bruce Rose there. I'm still working on this area. Great. I'll finalize the highlights later on with the Sakura Jelly Roll pen. But for now, I'm only creating the important highlights. And at the very end, I'll draw the eyelashes, which will be the final part of the drawing. And after that, I'll create all the necessary or the highlights which are broken down later on. Whenever we are working in realism, we need to trust the process. Even if it doesn't look good right at the current stage of drawing, we should continue and finish it. That is when we realize our mistakes, our improvement areas, and everything. Even this drawing is not perfect, it has a lot of flaws, but I'm still completing this and waiting for the final output and trying to fix all the minor flaws. So I notice some hair are coming to this region. At the current stage, this is looking good. I'll take little bit on my brush, little bit charcoal, and I'll create some dots because nobody has perfect skin. So you need to embrace these flaws. So I never ignore acne or a dark spot or hyperpigmentation or anything when we are drawing in realism because those little things are the only ones that takes your drawing from a drawing to a realistic drawing. I'm still learning this. I'm practicing this on the daily basis. Okay, so this region is done. Coming on to this region is very highlighted. So I'm going to start highlighting this region. But before that, I think we should highlight this region because this is comparatively less highlighted. So that then after I can completely focus on this drawing. All these highlights are very important. A single dot creates a lot of difference. So every drop counts. Now taking the hard pencil and drawing over the region. And this looks good. Now taking this eraser and creating the value. So the kneaded eraser also works good when we need to create the lighter highlights. For the very obvious highlights, I use this kneaded eraser. I'm also using this brush to lighten out any excess highlight that I have created. We're coming to our final stages of this drawing. Only we are left with the highlights of this region. We are left with the highlights of this region, and we are left with the eye highlights, and then we are left with the eyelashes, and then just the finishing touches. Now I'm directly using this Bruce Rose battery eraser. Also look if there is a particular pattern in your drawing, specifically when you are drawing the highlights. I think we should be done with this drawing till 10:30 now. It is 10:11 right now. So within 15 to 20 minutes, we will be done with this art, or maybe sooner. So this region is now completed. The rest will be done with the kneaded eraser itself. I'm taking this bigger brush and I'm blending in with the unnecessary highlights. Not unnecessary, I mean the highlights which are way darker than they should be. So for that I blend them with the help of a brush. And for the region where the highlight should be way brighter, I will use a jelly roll pen on this. Coming on to the this portion and shading this again. I'm using Bruce Rose battery eraser for this. You can use any battery eraser that you have. It can be of Derbent, it can be of any sort of company. This looks good to me. Now I'll shade this region. This is the Kohinoor's pencil eraser. You can use Staedtler's pencil eraser, you can use any pencil eraser that you have, or you can even use the eraser that is found behind your mechanical pencil. I'm taking the soft pencil and I'm shading in this region. This looks good. And taking the hard pencil now. It creates a lot of depth in the drawing when we create any sort of highlight, or when we create anything which is new to the subject or the drawing. It really helps to give a realistic approach to it. And this is the only thing that I practice a lot. Now coming on to the highlights, which is generally the highlights of the upper eyelid. This is completely white, this region, as I am observing in my reference. It doesn't have much shadows to it, and Then it continues to be in this dotted manner. This looks good. Similarly this. Now this is the time to draw our eyelashes. So you kind of need a sharp point for this. I don't think this is sharp enough, but I'm thinking that this works, and it should work. This looks good. So as you might be observing, I'm not drawing the lashes straight forward. There are a lot of curves, like even inside the lower lash line. It is starting from the right side and then continuously shifting to the left. So exactly what we need to do with each stroke, creating perfect differences and some key highlights. That's why I left this region for later purposes, because I knew this region will take time, it will take little efforts. Now in this region, it is stopped to curl much. Now it is not curling extreme for obvious reasons because of the uh, portion that we are drawing with. This can go till here. I think, yeah, this looks good. And now this region, followed by this region, and then little bit curation in this region. Now I'm shading this region well, since we have already drawn our eyelashes, the upper eyelash specifically. Now I'm shifting to the shading region. Yes, this looks good. This looks absolutely good to me. Now I'm coming to the lower lash line. For the lower lash line, now just observe this carefully. Start from here and then go like this. This will create your lower lash. So draw and release. Use this technique. I call it draw and release technique. If you use that, you'll draw extremely good eyebrows. So eyelashes, sorry. Hold and release technique in eyebrows. So it completely depends upon your working region and what you are actually creating. So it is depending upon that only. So some lashes are going to be bigger, and now this lash starting from here. I'm continuing this process, creating some highlights on the top lash. And some highlights here. And now this sort of is coming into its shape, and I'm taking a charcoal brush and I'm shading the region again. The server got disconnected for a while, but now we are live again. And this is the brush, and again a highlight. And I don't think there is a need of making another highlight here. This is enough. Making some highlight points at this region. Again, I'm creating some sharp values. And this drawing is mostly done. Now I'm taking a hard charcoal pencil and I'm drawing a line followed by this bristle. And this looks just fine. Creating some highlight points here as well. Some point here, here, here. Now I'm taking off the masking tape. Okay, so this one is tearing up the paper. So I need to be extra careful with this. Okay, just has torn tiny bit of the paper. And this reference is complete now. I'm just getting rid of some extra points. Also, for the spray that I use to keep them safe, I use this fixative. Uh, this is by Artfina. I use this fixative for fixing up my this drawing, which helps me to create it and keep it safe from any sort of damage. So the spray is highly recommended. This is not very expensive like Winsor and Newton's or any other. So yes, we can use that. And I'm taking out more charcoal from this, and like this is now done. It has all the highlights, it has all the shadows, it has all the midtones. So I think this drawing is finally done. And thank you so much for watching, for those who have stayed in my live, and for those who are watching it after the live video. This playlist will be updated with the first part of this drawing, which I've already recorded. It will be a real-time video, and followed by this live video, which is the second portion of this drawing, and I'll also update in the playlist. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time with another drawing, another live. Bye.